Medals and Jelly Spoons, welcome back to Badger Works. Today, this. This is a tank, and today we're going to put some winter camouflage on it. So, let's get on with it. So yes, this is indeed a tank. The keen-eyed among you will notice that this is a T-34 76. This is from Armour Fast. This is 1/72 scale, and we're going to put some winter camouflage on it. Now, this is a response of a request from one of my patrons, Mike. So, Mike, this is your fault. And he asked, how do I put winter camouflage on vehicles? And so it seemed like a perfectly reasonable question. Now, you will notice that the tank has already been built. It's now in 3 large pieces: the turret, the hull, and the tracks. That's how this thing comes. And it's been painted. It has not been weathered, you will notice. And I have sealed it with a coat of gloss varnish, specifically this high coat clear lacquer. You've seen me use this stuff before. Not a sponsor, but high coat if you're watching. Anyway, so now we've got it to this stage, we're going to use a process known as paint chipping. Now, there are a number of ways you can apply winter camouflage. This is the way I do it. I think it's the simplest way. And it involves taking a model like this, applying a gloss lacquer to it or varnish to it to seal everything. And that gives us a basis to apply our chipping medium. Now, let's just put this to one side for a second. For our chipping medium, we are going to use hairspray. There are all kinds of chipping mediums and stuff you can buy. Honestly, I just use hairspray. This particular one is from Sainsbury's. As you can see, it's their own brand. I did a video a while ago where I tested a whole bunch of different cheap hairsprays to see which ones work the best. You would think they'd all be the same, but they're not. And the 2 that I found that I liked were this one, and also, for those of you in the UK, in Aldi, they have their own brand called Lacura, I think it is. And they do one that works just as well as this. And the nice thing about the Lacura one is it comes in a bigger can, so you get more for your money. But this is what I generally use. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to spray it onto our model. So I'm going to do this first one under the camera. It can get a bit messy, but I'll do the first bit under the camera just so you can see what I'm doing. You can actually, if you want to, you can actually like distill this into an airbrush and spray it for an airbrush, but I just do it straight out the can. So what we're going to do is just give it a little shake and just give the whole thing a good spritz like that. And then we're going to set it aside for a few minutes and let it dry. It doesn't take long. It literally takes a few minutes. You've got to remember, this is hairspray. It's designed to dry fast. So I will do the rest of these bits and then we'll go on from there. Right, so this is dry now. I say it literally takes a minute or 2 to dry. This is hairspray. It's designed to dry quickly. So now we've got that, we're going to take some XF2 flat white and we're going to spray it over the top. Right. Now, you have to remember, when this was done, this would either be done with like a spray can, you know, like an air sprayer, or with paintbrushes and just slopped on. So you don't have to be too precious about it. Like that. Now, when it comes to the wheels, obviously, because of the way this particular model is designed, the wheels and the tracks and everything are all in one piece. But what we can do to make life a little bit easier is use one of these. This is a circle template. You can get these from any sort of stationery supply place or Amazon or anywhere like that. And what you do is you just pick a suitably sized hole. Stop laughing at the back. And you put it over the wheel and then you spray through it. So I have 2 holes masked off here because we have 2 different sizes of wheels. So the smaller one here is for this idler pulley. So we'll just put that over like that. Get it centered. And then we just of spritz like that. And when I take this away, there is one perfectly painted wheel. And for the larger wheels, we just use a slightly larger hole. I'm not going to tell you again. Like that. So I will do the rest of these and then we'll go on from there. Right, so I've given that a few minutes to dry, and I have just put a little plastic tray down just because I don't want to get water everywhere, and put a bit of tissue in it. And I've got here a little pot of water. This is warm water. I find warm water works best for this, but you can do it with cold, it doesn't really matter. And I've got a selection of tools here that I'm going to use. So I've got a normal paintbrush. This is a filbert. I have also got this brush, which is actually an oil painting brush, an old one that I just cut the bristles down to make them shorter and a bit stiffer. I'm not going to tell you again. I also have a cocktail stick, and I shall be using a variety of different tools for this. It's basically whatever works. So let's get our turret back in. And what we're going to do first of all is we're just going to take the brush, get it wet in the water, and just basically just paint it on. Just blob it on. Because what we want to do is get the paint, the water to soak through the paint and basically reactivate the hairspray. So you can see it's kind of beading on the top at the moment, because this is the thing with acrylic paints, is when they dry, they actually become waterproof. So just keep painting it on and just soak the whole thing. You can do it in sections or you can do it all at once. It's entirely up to you. But just keep working the water into the paint, and it will eventually soak through and it will reactivate the hairspray. Now, what you'll find, if you notice there, you see there's a couple of bits have already come off. Once it starts to come off, it will usually go quick. So once that starts going, you need to be careful. So what we want to do first, in this instance, is I want to remove the paint from the star on the turret. So we'll use whatever we need to. As I say, this works very well because the bristles are a bit stiffer. But you can see now that paint is coming off. So what we do is we just very gently remove the paint from the star. Like that. And again, we can just use whatever we need to. You can use cotton buds, whatever you want. So I'm just going to take some of this water off. And just use this to kind of feather the edges a little bit. You see? And then again, on the edges, anywhere, any like high traffic areas, so like around the hatches and things like that, because that's where people would be walking and, you know, opening and closing the hatches. Also remembering on an armoured vehicle, it's going to go through a lot of brush and bushes and trees and stuff, so that will take the paint off. So basically, you know, you can look at reference pictures and stuff like that, but anything really. And all you want to do is just keep working at it and just take off as much paint as you want. You can also use, like I said, a cocktail stick or something and create scratches. So if you don't want to take big lumps off, you can just literally just do it like that. Just very gently, just scratch the paint and create scratches like that. What you can also do, and you do have to be careful doing this, is if you just keep working the edges gently, you can basically wear through the paint and make it look like it's worn off rather than scratched off. But you just have to be careful with that, because like I said, once it starts to go, it will go fast. But I say, worst case scenario, you can just paint over it again and do it again. So I'll just keep working away at this. We've got another decal back here that we need to reveal, which is the unit number. But again, it's like edges and high traffic areas. That's where you really want to be taking the paint off. And again, if you just work over the whole thing, you can thin the paint and make it look like it's just been applied haphazardly, which is going to be the case because squaddies, right? Any of you who have served will know exactly what I'm talking about. Path of least resistance. You know, when you're given a job to do and you don't really want to do it, you'll just make a lash up of it. So we'll do the gun, we'll just do everything like that, you see. So hopefully that will give you a good idea for that. And for the wheels, we do the same thing. Bearing in mind, again, the wheels will take a lot of abuse because obviously they're closer to the ground. They're going to be going through, you know, brush and terrain and stuff like that. So we'll just get them wet to start with. Just to let that water soak through and reactivate the hairspray. And it's funny because I've had people say, you know, like ask me, how long can you leave it in this state before you actually chip the paint? I've left models for like a week before I've started chipping the paint and it still works. So it's it really depends. But you see, this is coming off already. So, but again, with the wheels, I find it's easier to work round it in a circular motion like that. And you can see what it's doing there. So it's taking the paint off and leaving, you know, it looks like it's taking the paint off the high spots, which is exactly what would happen in reality. And then again, you can use a bit of tissue or something and just dab off the excess so you can see what you're doing. Like that, you see. It's very simple. And it's fun actually doing it with like little models like this. It's just a good way to practice. So, you know, just have at it. I mean, if you've got old models that you've already built and, you know, might be looking a bit long in the tooth in terms of paint and things, you can actually use a technique like this to basically completely change the look of a model. So if you've got a tank or something that you built a long time ago, or that you're not happy with the finish on it or something like that, just spray it with some gloss varnish and then do this, and you can completely change the whole look of it. So, but there you go. So we'll just keep working at this. And I'm being very delicate with the brush. Sometimes you might need to like really have at it, but most of the time you won't. There you go, like that, you see. So we'll let that dry as well. And for the hull, it's basically the same deal again. The thing to think about with the hull is, again, this would be driving through, you know, brush and terrain and things like that. So on the front here, on the track guards and all this kind of stuff, these would get a lot of abuse. So here you might want to remove more paint. And again, you might want to use something like a cocktail stick and just get in there and just create lots of scratches and things like that. And just work at it in the direction of travel. So you take the paint off in the direction that the paint would be scraped off were it a real vehicle, if that makes sense. And again, focus on the areas around the hatches, because the driver would climb up from the front and get into the hatch. So again, you might find the paint would get more knocked off here. And definitely around these track guards, they take a lot of abuse. But just keep working at it. And like I say, as soon as you start to see the paint start to go, like there you see there's a couple of little spots, that's when you need to start being careful. Because once it starts to go, it goes fast. That is the most important thing to remember. But there you go, you see. So I will continue working at all of this and then come back and show you what it looks like when I'm done. Right, there we go. That doesn't look too bad, does it? So that's the turret, obviously. And we have our wheels. There's one set. There's the other set. And of course, the hull. So again, I've hit it more from the front than anything else, but also on the back, because believe it or not, armoured vehicles spend almost as much time going backwards as they do forwards. But there you go. So again, focusing on the areas around hatches and things like that. You'll notice on the top there, I've done some little scratches around the inspection hatch and the same on the back there. And to be honest, we could leave it like that, but we're going to do a few extra little bits. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take all these pieces and I'm going to give them another coat of gloss lacquer, and then we'll see what's going on after that. Right, I've just stuck the tracks on, as you can see. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over it with this panel line accent, the dark brown one. You could use an oil wash as well, either would work, but I'm going to use this because, quite frankly, I can't be bothered to mix up an oil wash. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply this fairly liberally in all the various relevant spots. We particularly want to pick up these vents and things, but just generally go over everything like that. And I say we'll do the turret. Because again, there is some quite nice detail on this turret. So for a model that's, I think, generally considered to be kind of not necessarily bottom of the barrel, but you know, fairly cheap. You know, these didn't cost a lot. They're actually not bad at all. They go together nicely. There we go. Right, we'll leave all that to dry for a minute and then we'll go on from there. Right, so I just hit that with a hairsprayer for a minute and let it dry. I've got a little pot here with some white spirit in it. This is just this cheap stuff. It came from Wilkinson's, I believe, who unfortunately are no longer with us. But you can get it anywhere. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this little fan brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to wet the brush, and then we're going to pat it on a bit of tissue to get most of it off. And then we're going to use this very lightly and just go over this, and we're going to take some of this off, and we're also going to streak it. This is one of the nice things about tanks, is they're generally fairly simple to do this kind of thing. But we're just going to go over it very lightly, like this. And obviously you can use different brushes. I just use this one to start with because it's a little bit easier. We'll just go over like this and just use that to basically make this a little bit more interesting, as it were, and look a bit more like it's been out in the rain and the mud and the snow and everything else. And it's just made it a little bit grubby. Like that, you see? Just keep working at it until you get it looking how you want. And we'll do the same with the turret. just go over the sides of it like that. Like that. It will look a bit weird because it's still glossy, but we'll fix that in a minute. So there you go, like that. Now there's a couple of other little bits we're going to do, again with oils, just to give it jazz it up a little bit more. So we'll do that next and go on from there. Right, so what I've got here on this bit of cardboard is some oil paint. These are the Crawford and Black oil paints. You've seen me use these before. These are just the cheap ones. They're good for this kind of thing because they don't have a lot of oil in them. They're pretty rubbish as oil paints, but they're great for weathering. So I've got yellow ochre, burnt umber and black. And I've just got an old brush here. This is actually one of the ones that comes out of the starter kits. I've got so many of these. And what I'm doing is I'm just applying some like point washes and stuff like that. So like on the front here, it's quite a subtle effect, but I've just put some around the hatches and whatnot, and it's basically just to make some more defined streaks. So we just put a little bit on like that, and then we use a makeup brush like this and just work it where we want it, and just go over it very lightly, and you can see that it just creates some more defined streaks. And again, they don't need to be, you know, ridiculous, but it just adds a little bit more interest. And what we're also going to do is around the back here, we're going to use a little bit of black and just go around the exhaust pipes just a little bit, like that. And again, you can always put more on, so you don't need to go mad with it. And what we want to do is just kind of almost smear that in, just to create like a sooty effect around the exhaust pipes. Like that, you see. Hopefully you can see that. It's all a bit shiny still, so once we hit it with some matte lacquer, all of this will pop a little bit more. But again, you can just put a little bit on, work it around until you get the look you want. Because if you just blob a load on, then you're kind of wasting your time. You know, you'll spend forever trying to clean it up. Whereas if you just add a little tiny bit at a time and work it in, you can just kind of build it up to the look that you want. We'll do a little bit on the turret as well. So like, for example, where this light is attached, that's a prime spot for dirt to gather. So we can just do a little bit underneath that. Like that, you see. Again, it's very difficult to see at the moment because it's all still very shiny, but once we hit it with some matte lacquer, that will all look a bit more interesting. There you go. So the last thing I'm going to do before I lacquer this is I'm going to paint the light silver, and I'm going to paint the gun and the tailpipes. Then I'll put some matte lacquer on the whole thing, and then I think we can wrap this up. And here is our finished article. Hopefully this is what you were looking for, Mike. I mean, obviously we could have gone a lot further with the weathering. We could have, you know, done mud and snow and stuff and all that kind of thing. But I think that was perhaps a bit beyond the scope of this video. The question Mike asked was about winter camouflage. And hopefully this has given you a few pointers there, Mike. And obviously for everyone else at home, I hope this has been of interest to you as well. As ever, I would like to thank my top tier patrons, Howard, Amy, Chris and Hawaii Clive O, for their continued support, and of course all of my other patrons, Mike included, and all my channel members and all you lovely people at home. Your support is very, very much appreciated. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this little foray into madness, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers. Bye.